your host for round about the next. I think this one will be about half an hour. It was originally booked in for about 45 minutes, but we've cut it down a little bit just to stick to the basics. So we'll be targeting around about 30 minutes this morning. So you might get a little bit of time back. But welcome along. This is the sixth topic in our webinar series for the Report Designer 2025. So we're looking at the introduction to criteria. So the criteria boxes that appear when you actually go to run a report, when it asks you for things like a customer range or a transaction range or a date range, that type of thing. So that's what we're going to be covering in today's session. Just before we get stuck in though, I'll quickly run you through a little bit of housekeeping, again, just in case anyone is new or maybe you've not attended one in a while. Normal sort of rules apply, so you don't need a microphone. If you've got one, it will be muted automatically. Does mean any questions that you have for us today, you'll need to pop them in the questions panel. Just click the little speech bubble icon. It'll expand and you get access to that box and you can show or hide that at any time. So pop your question, your comments in there, keep them coming, do engage with us. Remember to click send, otherwise we don't see them. So we're joined today by Abby, Laura and Tina. They'll be on hand in the background to help answer some of those questions that you might have. If we don't get a chance to answer your question on the session today, then we'll just try and obviously work through that this afternoon or at some point tomorrow to email you an answer out. There is an opportunity to download a copy of today's handout. So a copy of the slides, two versions of those, usual ones, one full colour version, the other one what we term the print-friendly version. So do take that opportunity during the session. The full colour version will be available via the link on the follow-up email. So if you do miss that or you download it and then forget to save it, then you still have that opportunity available to you. The follow-up email will include that link to the handout. It'll include a link to today's recording. So if you want a bit of a recap, you'll have that available. And also links to our webinar registration page. So if you want to sign up for some of our other sessions, and also if you want to watch recordings, you'll have a link to that page as well. So as I say, round about 1 hour after we finish. So I mentioned this is session 6 in the topics that we're running for the Report Designer webinar series. We've got another session next week, the final topic, Introduction to Filters, and the two criterion filters are very similar. And we'll explain a bit about that once we get up and running. So you want to find out about filters, please get signed up for that next session, which is next week. I think it's Tuesday afternoon next week, or Tuesday morning, sorry, next week. There's also the quiz. We're running one of those tomorrow afternoon. And also there'll be another session on that next week as well. So chance for you to attend them. Right, okay, so if you haven't yet registered for them, please just watch out for that follow-up email and get yourself on that list. Right, for this session though, so the introduction to criteria, we'll start with a brief introduction and then really like similar to the other sessions that we've been running, we want to get stuck into the demonstration. Report design, it's a very visual thing to learn. So you'll want to see that in action. So you'll want to see the steps involved and what reports look like before and after when we turn criteria on and off, and how we can go about adding new criteria as well. Just at the end, we'll explain more about the additional support, and then if there are any outstanding questions, I'll try and get stuck into some of those as well with Abby, Laura and Tina. As I say, if we don't get a chance to cover yours today, just watch out for your email coming through at some point, either today or possibly tomorrow morning. Right, so let's get started then. So let's start with a little bit of an introduction to criteria. So the idea of criteria, and you've probably found yourself at some point where you've run a report and you've got too much information on there. So you're thinking, oh, it's included that and I don't really want that. And when you're in that position, there's a few options available for you to help control the information that is included on the report. So before running the report, this is something that we covered in session 1. Seems a long time ago now we covered session 1 in this series. You can apply a filter, or simply select the required records from the list. So going down that list and highlighting the, say, the customers or the suppliers or the products or the invoices that you want to include in that report. And when you run the report, only those records that were highlighted will be considered for the report. Now, I say considered for the report, they might not be included because you might have included other criteria on the report. So they get filtered out from the report that way. But if you've got anything highlighted, it will only base it around the records that are. Second option is when running the report, and that's what we're looking at today, and it's the use of criteria. So when you run the report, you get a little box pop up, and that's going to ask you, right, what range of customers do you want to run it for, what transaction type, what date range, that type of thing. So it's what you would term, I suppose, a runtime option. So when you're running the report, it gives you the option there and then. And it means that you can enter different criteria each time as well. The third option is filters, which are built into the report itself. So you would use those when you don't need to enter, or you don't want to enter different selection criteria each time. So if you've got, say, customers assigned to a specific product manager, for instance, you might build in a filter into your report so that when you run the report, it just includes theirs only. You might have a number of different variants of that report. But you might have other stuff as well that you know where you want that filter built in, so you don't have to. Keep specifying that, or you'll run the report and it might take a little while if you've got a big set of data. So you don't want to be in that position where you run the report, it takes a little while to generate, and then you think, oh, I forgot to specify that criteria again. So that's where you would use the built-in filter. Now, today's session, we're just going to focus on the criteria element. So that's what we're going to focus, just sort of an introductory level to that. Filters will be covered in session number 7, aptly named Introduction to Filters. But today's session will help you decide of the 3 methods that you can use to limit the data on a report, which is actually best. So let's get started. So we'll get stuck straight into some demonstrations. So again, I mentioned this quite visual. So we'll get stuck into some demonstrations. I'll share my screen and we'll get started. Now, by default, most of the standard reports in Sage 50 accounts will have 1 or more criteria applied. So when you run it, you'll be prompted to enter something, whether that's a date range, customer range, nominal range, etc. But as usual, for all the other sessions, we're going to start by looking at the customer list report. So again, nice basic report, this one. So into customers, into reports. And then if we go to customer details, select that customer list, and we'll just preview it. So this is what we're talking about criteria, the criteria values option. This is what we're looking at in this report, and this indicates that criteria is enabled in the design of the report. So in this example, we've got 2 criteria enabled, customer reference and also the show active, inactive. Now what I'll do is I'll quickly change this one, and I'll change it to is, and I'll choose inactive and just OK that. So rather than my full list of customers now appearing, what I've done is I've specified some criteria on the report. So when it runs it, it's only then pulling through, in this case, the ones that are flagged as being inactive. Right, so we'll just quickly run that report again. So back to the customer list, I'll preview it again. Again, I'll just accept all of that default criteria. The one I'll change is this one. I'll just leave it set to is active. We'll just OK that. So let's just preview that one so you stand a chance of seeing what's actually on the report itself. But I want to quickly just run through how it applies it within the report designer itself. So what we can see on the output of the report, again, we've got the standard sort of information at the top, but you've got this section here, sort of the report criteria. You remember when we looked at sort of sections and groups, we sort of touched on that one a little bit. So where we had that report criteria, sometimes it's in a report header section, sometimes it's in a page header section. It just depends how you want it to appear on the report itself. So we can see that it shows us the criteria. It just means if you're working from like a saved file or maybe a printout, you can see the information, what was specified. You're not looking at a report thinking, well, what date range was it run for, or why isn't this customer appearing? You can see the criteria that was applied at the time. Now, let's see how it's applied in Report Designer itself. So we're going to go into the design of this report. Now remember, when you're previewing a report, you've got edit at the top, or if you're just on the list of reports, so I'll just close out. So when you've got your list of reports, as long as you've got it selected, you can click edit at the top there as well. Both will take you into the Report Designer. Again, we'll just quickly zoom in to give you a fighting chance of seeing what's included on the report. So remember, page header, for the report we just looked at, it's got the date, time, company name, you've got the name of the report itself, and then you've got things like the page number on there. But this is the section I'm interested in, this page header section in this case. So we've got essentially the 2 bits of criteria that are listed. Now it's not necessarily showing what's active. So if you switch criteria off or on, you would need to add it into this section if you want it to display on your report what's actually been included. So you might have others in the background and other options when you run the report that you've specified, but actually it's not actually set to actually show on the report itself. So it still uses it in the background to filter the information, but doesn't actually show it on the report. So that's something to remember. We'll touch on that a little bit later on as well. Now, within the Report Designer, if we go to the report menu at the top, and there's the criteria option. So report at the top, criteria. And it shows me the 2 criteria in this case that have a status of enabled. See the status column there. Now, if we select one, doesn't matter which one of the 2 at this stage. If you select one, you will see that the options become active on the side. So the modify, the remove, and depending on its position in the list, the move up or move down, or maybe both if you've got loads of criteria enabled. So that's when they become active. Now, to turn a criteria off, we can select it. So this one here, we'll use the inactive flag. We'll go to modify. So it's got the criterion name, or the criterion name, I should say, sales ledger, and it's the inactive flag. The message to use when prompting for a value. So this is the title that appears on the next to the criteria option on that little box that appears when you go to run the report. So it's this one here, they show active/inactive. We've got the status, which is, in this case, it's flagged as being enabled. So I just switch it off, choose disabled. Now notice on the drop down there is a preset option as well. I'm not going into preset today. If you need information on sort of preset criteria, then do refer to the information in our help center. But at this stage, if I just disable it, so I'll flag it, I'll just OK that. You'll see it's flagged as being disabled, so we'll just OK that. Sorry, one of my colleagues had unmuted the line there, so sorry about that. Right, okay. So what we'll do at this stage, if I just click on the preview option at the bottom of the screen, and this time you'll see when we get the criteria values window pop up, we no longer see that one because we've switched it off. So we're just prompted at this stage for the customer reference only. So really easy if there's criteria you want to remove, easy to do that. To switch it back on, we'll just go back to report at the top and down to criteria. Now what you'll see at this point is that only the criteria that is enabled appears on this list. In the bottom left corner, we've got an option to show the disabled, and it tells us 15 of them. So 15 potential options in the background are currently flagged as being disabled. Now if I just tick that checkbox, it gives me a list of them. So including the customer reference, which is the one that is currently enabled. So I've got essentially all 16 of them now. And we can then obviously go through it. Are there any that we want to apply or they're not? Now, this will show the not only the default criteria for this report, and you'll see some of the criteria, it refers to things like transaction date. So actually, that criteria isn't even relevant to the report we're looking at, the customer list one. So we don't have any transactional information on this report. So we'll just, again, stick with the basics. We'll just go back to this one. Now, obviously, you can make that a little bit wider if you need to see it. It's not very wide there when you first go in. So we can find out which one it is if we need to. We'll just highlight that one. What we're going to do is we're just going to switch it back on. So back to modify with it selected. And from the drop down, we'll just go back to enabled. OK that. And OK that. And that's it done. So again, if we just preview the report using the option at the bottom, and you can see it's switched it back on now. Right, let's just cancel out of that one for now. So that's how easy it is to check what criteria is enabled, and also to check, obviously, to switch it on and off as well. Now there will be occasions where you maybe want to add criteria and it's not either on the enabled list, and maybe it's not on the disabled list either. So there are other options where maybe you want to apply something that's not on that default list. So it can be added as new criteria. So for example, let's say you'd like to be able to select the sales rep when running the report. So you can see a list of customers for that rep. Now, what I mean by that, we'll just close out of this for a moment. So this links in nicely with one of Laura's sessions that she runs as well. So if we go into a customer record, and we'll pop into defaults, and we've got the analysis fields here as well. So we're in that 1A customer. And I'm going to say the responsible rep, so I've renamed some of them. And I'm going to say this one is George. So George looks after this particular customer. I'll just save that. So you're using the analysis fields to record additional information. Now, also what we covered, and something Laura covers in her session, is that you can use custom fields to filter your lists. So again, often more than one way to crack the same nut when it comes to getting at the information you want. We don't necessarily have to build it into the report. We could just apply a filter beforehand and then run the report. But let's say we want to build that into the report. We don't know what you don't want to mess around with filters and things like that prior to running the report. So we want a list of all customers assigned to George. Now, just to give us an example, actually, we'll see which ones we've got entered. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to right click one of the column headings. I've got the default columns shown at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I've right clicked one of the column headings. I'll scroll down, and the one I'm looking for is responsible rep. So I'm just going to switch that column on, and you can see in the column that appears here down the right hand side, Now I can't change the order of those columns. I can choose which ones I want to show or hide, but I can't change the order of them on the list. So we can see we've got quite a few customers assigned to George. We've got some with no one and some that are assigned to Malcolm. Now I could easily go into filter and say, right, give me a list of customers where the responsible rep, or in this case, the analysis 2 field, is equal to George. So it would filter that list, show me all the ones allocated to George, and then I could run that report. But I can also build that into the report itself. Now, if you're not that au fait with custom fields, do watch the webinar recording on that one. We will be repeating it in a couple of weeks' time as well, if you want to come along to the live session. Right, let's go back to the reports themselves. So customers, reports, customer details, and again, we'll pick on that customer list report. We'll just edit it. Right, we're now going to go back to the report option, down to criteria. Now, obviously, the responsible rep or the analysis 2 field, it's not listed as being enabled. If I click show disabled as well, because it's a custom field, it's not on here by default either. So some of the common ones will be listed. So have a look in there before you try starting to add a new one. So is it a one that you can just select and then switch on? What we're going to do though is we're going to add it. So we just new criteria. It says which database field do you want to filter on? So this comes back to, excuse me, remember the tables in the group session? So I think that was session number 3, where we looked at, right, going into the right table, choosing the right data field or variable. So essentially that's what it's asking us for here. So what we're after, it's on the sales ledger field, in the sales ledger table, I should say. And the data field or variable that we want to base it around is analysis 2. Now it's still called analysis 2, even though we renamed it in Sage Accounts itself to responsible rep. That's what we've got the title change to. In the report designer, it'll still be displayed variable wise as say analysis 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Similar for things like email addresses. The variable has that fixed sort of title, email 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If I just scroll down, you should see that one. There they are. So again, you might have renamed these in Sage just to change the titles, but the data fields themselves will still have those default descriptions. So the one we're after is analysis field number 2. I just OK that. So it's showing me the criterion name. We've got the text to appear in front of the criteria value when we run the report. So by default, it's picked up essentially the data field name. I'm going to change that one. I'm going to change it to sales rep. And automatically it's enabled it, and the filter expression is just again the name of the data field at this stage. So we'll just OK that. We'll just OK that. And if we did go back to report and criteria, you can see we've got the 3 there now as well. Now, if we wanted to, we could rearrange that. We'll come back to that one in a second. But for now, we'll just OK it. We know it's enabled. When we go to run the report, we now get the 3rd option. So sales rep. So standard sort of criteria that we originally had, plus the additional one that we just entered. So it means that if we were looking for customers allocated to George, we can just go in and we can change it there and then. Laura, you were just asking, how do we change the names of the analysis fields? It's something that Laura's covered in her custom fields webinar. So do check that one out on the recording. You'll find loads of information about things like that in the Help Centre as well. So just trying to stay on track with the criteria in today's session. Right, so we'll just okay that. So we want to run it for all customers, all accounts as well, whether they're active or not. And we want to run it where the sales rep in that analysis 2 field is set to George. So we just okay that. Loads of questions coming around about the analysis fields there. If in doubt, do check out that recording. I don't want to get bogged down by the analysis fields too much. We're just using that one as an example. But there is a great recording available from our Help Centre that goes into what they are, how you go about renaming them, etc. Just by default, they're called analysis 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So in that order. So it was the second field. That's how I know which is the one I'm after. Good question as well, just in relation to that, just asking, is it case sensitive when I've keyed that in? So you can see we've got that 1A customer where we added George into earlier. Now it doesn't show on the report what that field was set to, and I haven't included it in the report criteria at the top yet either. Well, let's just go back to the design view. We'll run it again. So it's still picked it up. If I just set it to George with a lowercase g, you can see it picks up the same customers. So there is no difference. It's not case sensitive when we're entering text in there. Obviously, it needs to be spelt right. So, if I go in and I make a bit of a typo. So if you've got like let's say a Philip, where it might be 1 L, might be 2 L's, if you put a typo in there, it does need to match. So if I just miss a character out and I've spelt that wrong, I just okay that. That's it. So it tells me no data was returned on the report. Right. Now on the design of the report, so a question came through from Sonia there. So why is it not pulling that through onto the report? Now remember what we covered in other reports as well. We were covering data fields and things like that. We've not got anything that says, right, we want to pull that through onto the report. So in the body section, it's pulling through data from in this case, the customer's account, the account reference, things like the name, contact name, telephone number, email. We haven't set it to pull through whatever the extra field was we wanted, so analysis 2 in this case. If we wanted that, we would need to insert that to say, right, when you run the report, we want you to show this. Similarly, if we wanted the criteria to be included, this is our page header section where we've got the criteria listed. So that's there. So if I had removed that criteria for the show active, inactive, and the expression, I could come in and I could remove that because it's no longer relevant to the report. If I want to include sort of the what I've specified for the analysis, then I would need to add that into this sort of page header section so that it says something like responsible rep. So I'd have that as a bit of a title and then pull that report criteria through. So remember, for your variables, you do have one you've got a section not only for report, but you've got one for criteria. So on here, it'll give you a list of the criteria options that you've got available to pull through onto. So including, let's see if I can now make that a little bit wider. So you've got the sort of analysis options that you can pull through into this sort of area if you want to include that on the report output. But remember, it's not case sensitive, that one. Hope that makes sense. Wildcards also asked about. No, you can't specify a wildcard at the point of and the criteria values. It's not going to work with that one. Well, by wildcards, we mean things like using an asterisk or something along those lines. If you wanted to do that, then you would need to build that into something like the report filter. So that's something that when you could use it, but not at the point of sort of the criteria values themselves. Stephen, you're asking, can the criteria be made to be case sensitive? No, you can't change that on the report itself. So it is what it is. Right, so hopefully that's given you a bit of an introduction to criteria. Obviously, if you want more information, you can play around with it, but there's also more information available from our help center. So again, do check that out if you are interested. It's a great section within our help center. If we just go back to the slides for a moment. Now I've included these two links on the handout as well. So if you have downloaded that, that'll work. So you've got a reports and layout, what we term a reports and layouts hub. So it's got its own dedicated section within our help center. So just look for that when you first access the Sage 50 accounts area. And also I've included the article which will give you sort of a detailed sort of step-by-step guide to adding selection criteria to a report, what options you've got, etc. So again, do take that opportunity. If you've got any final questions, if you want to quickly pop them in, I'll just give you another minute or two just to pop some of them in. Now remember, you will receive your follow-up email in around about an hour's time. That will include a link to the recording of today's session. So if you want a bit of a recap, maybe so you can follow it through at your own pace, obviously you can pause those videos once you start watching them. So if you want to follow it through either in your live data or even the demonstration company, for instance, you can do that. Remember though, with reports, if you do make any changes, if it's a standard report, it's going to force you to do that save as option. It won't let you just save changes to the standard reports. So they're protected, they're flagged as read only. For webinars, loads of webinars on the go at the moment. We're just about to start publishing the rest of the October timetable. So do watch out for that. They should be live in the next couple of days. You can access those either via the link on your follow-up email, which again, you'll get in about an hour's time, or you can just head along to sage.co.uk/webinars. So nice and easy to access the live registration pages or the recordings pages for both Sage 50 accounts and Sage 50 payroll. It's the same address that you'll need. Right, just before anyone disappears, so let me thank you for attending. If you can take a minute to complete the little survey that should pop up as you leave, then always appreciated. The follow-up email will be with you in round about 1 hour's time. So just remember, for what we've covered today, any new criteria enabled won't automatically appear on the output of the report. So that section at the top where it showed me the customer range and the show active, inactive. So that's on the report itself. It must be added in manually. So you can do that by adding sort of text boxes that we looked at in previous sessions, and also adding in the data fields from the criteria table. Remember, you can't save any changes to the standard reports. I've just mentioned that one. So, you know, you're not going to cause any problems. Have a go. There's loads to learn in report design. I've been doing it a while, but I still feel like I know very, very little. But a lot of these features, it's just scratching at the surface. Those are the common changes. So things like adding a logo, adding a bit of text, that might be all you need to know as far as the report designer is concerned. If you want to develop your knowledge though, you can play around with it. Loads of supporting information in our help center. And of course, we've got our recordings of our sessions to help as well. And obviously, most layouts, they do include criteria. Oh, sorry, most of your layouts, I should say, they don't include criteria. The layout side, the reports will, but not on the layouts. The only exception to that one is when you're running the likes of a customer statement. It will ask you, right, what sort of date range do you want to run that statement from? However, if you can find a reason for adding criteria, it could be added in pretty much the same way. So we will be covering filters in our next session, which will be Tuesday morning at 11. We'll be covering that one. Complements this one really well. So at the start, remember we talked about applying filters just to your lists beforehand to limit the information that gets included. We've looked at criteria today as a way of limiting that information, and filters is almost the third part. We call it a third part in that RepDes trilogy. So if you want to see all options, then get yourself signed up for that one. Right, any additional questions? So let's have a quick look. Let's see if I can help out with anything. Question about Sage 200. We're not covering on that session today. I don't think any of us on the session have actually supported Sage 200. I think it uses a similar report designer, if not the same report designer. So it should be a case of applying information, adding variables, criteria in pretty much the same way, but that might be something you would need to get support on. Ronnie, you mentioned there, is there any way we can access the handouts from the earlier sessions in this set? Yes. If you access the recordings page, they're all linked from there. Also, if you did register for those sessions, if you've still got your follow-up emails, the link will be on that one as well. So I'll just give you a quick example. I'll quickly show directions for that one. So I'll bring up my browser. I'll head along to sage.co.uk/help, not help, webinars, I should say. So these are the links that essentially that you're provided with on your follow-up email. So we've got our recordings, and we've got the report designer series that we're running at the moment. Remember, the sessions are repeated in October. If you've missed any sessions, get yourself signed up for them. But on here, you've got the sessions listed, and we've got specifically handout links for these. So if you do want them, it's just a case of clicking it. When you do, you'll find it'll view the article, but it'll automatically download that PDF for you. So don't sit there thinking, oh, nothing's happened. It'll just download it for you. You may be prompted, depends on your browser. So that's how you can get at them. And again, it's also how you can access the recordings. We've got 4 to add now. They'll be available again, hopefully by the end of tomorrow. But otherwise, on your follow-up emails, you'll have the link to watch the recording as well. Right, let's see if we've got anything else I can quickly pick up. Sean, your question from earlier. So you were asking about the sort of drop down on the criteria. So let's just go back to my Sage in a moment. So what I think what you're asking is, when you get to this point, can you have a drop down on this? It depends what it is. So for one of the analysis fields, it doesn't display what you've already entered. You will need to type that in. Other fields, it will prompt you with a drop down. So a bit like this, so where we get given the choice. So let's see if I can just quickly add some other criteria in as an example. We'll do new criteria, sales ledger, and let's do something like, let's say department number. I'll just okay that. It's enabled, okay that one. So let's say I want to find all customers in department number 1, for instance. So I'll just okay that. It's now part of that criteria. And in this case, again, because of what it is, slightly different options this time. So I can type it, or I can use the sort of up and down arrows to specify the number. Just depends what you're after. And again, you've got different options here as well. So, you know, is it between, is it sort of outside, from and to, that type of thing. or is it just I'm looking for one? So I want department number 1 only, for instance. I can do it that way. So have a go of it, have a little play around with it. If you do get stuck, remember, loads of information in our help center. You can submit your queries to our support team as well, and they should be able to, it might need to be sort of sent up a tier or two, just so that you get an emailed response. But otherwise, no need to struggle, do get in touch. Flora, you mentioned a bit of part of the webinar. You missed was there a section on the preset criteria? We haven't covered preset today. Didn't want to get too involved in that. So again, you'll find more information about preset criteria in the Help Center. Should link in a little bit with tomorrow about what we're covering as well when we're pre-applying sort of filters to our reports. So once again, many thanks for attending. We're going to end the webinar just at that point. I'll have a look through the questions, see if there's anything outstanding. And then, excuse me, if there is anything outstanding, I will get back to you. I'll drop you an email. Do take that minute to complete the survey, and we hope to see you on some of those other sessions very, very soon. Many thanks.